I think most Korean moms, when they cook for their family, they take the long way. They take the honest way. And that's why the food comes out better at home than at restaurants in Korean cuisine. In a restaurant, that may not apply most of the time, but I don't let myself forget that when I am cooking, whether it be a fine dining restaurant like my new restaurant or a very casual banchan.
Korean food is now a staple in the culinary landscape of New York, a mecca of global food. It was not the case in 2010 when chef Hooni Kim first opened his Korean restaurant, Danji. But Chef Kim went on to captivate the palate of New Yorkers and become the first to earn a Michelin star for a Korean restaurant. Now the globally renowned chef is setting his sights on taking Korean cuisine from a dining out experience to within the home. With the newly opened Little Banchan Shop, our globalist today, Hooni Kim, is out to show that Korean food can captivate the global palate every day of the week. So, welcome, Chef Kim, to the Globalists.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with your Little Banchan Shop. Now, banchan as a concept, we Koreans know what banchan is, but it's not a common concept outside of Korea. It's sort of, the side dishes. People outside of Korea think it's sort of what you get for free when you go to a Korean restaurant. So why open a banchan shop in New York?
I think definitely you're right in that people still don't understand the concept of banchan. That's some of the things that we are having to educate. After the store opened, we didn't understand that the whole Korean banchan concept of having delicious, cold, nutritious food in your fridge and keeping it in your fridge for days and sometimes weeks to take it out anytime that you're hungry. And all you need is a bowl of rice, a hot bowl of rice. It's such an instant, healthy meal that I think most cities should be embracing. But they didn't know. So, most of our customers, the non-Korean ones, when they first came in, they just thought it was just a dish that you eat. Because in restaurants, they don't give you rice with banchan in the beginning. They just give you the banchan. So, and they didn't know that it was a good thing to be able to keep in the fridge. Because Western culture, you only take home food from a restaurant or a store that you can't finish. So to educate, to let them know, to inform them, one, that it's best eaten with rice, and it's Korean culture that we're teaching, the banchan culture of having delicious, healthy food in the fridge all the time so that you can eat instantly anytime you want.
I remember that because kimchi is representative of our banchan. And I remember taking my Western friends to a Korean restaurant in the U.S. And as you said, banchan comes out first and kimchi comes out first. And they spot kimchi, which is sort of the representative Korean food. And they immediately start eating the kimchi. And I have to really physically tackle them to stop. No, that's not the way you eat kimchi. That's not the way you eat banchan. You eat banchan with rice. And that's what the whole concept of banchan is about. So I'm sure you had to go through this kind of concept of banchan and why non-Koreans needed to buy and then take home and how they should eat it. It's a whole educational process.
We have a few seatings at the store where they can showing, outside near the window. We still see customers buying a few and just asking for chopsticks, opening it up right then and eating 3 banchans without the rice. Now we have posters in the store letting them know that banchan should be enjoyed with a hot bowl of rice. And the hot rice is so important because right out of the fridge, when it's really cold, it's not as delicious as when it's sort of balanced with a warm rice. It's still a tough process. It's still, we go out of our way to teach, to inform. But, you know, that's my goal. That's our goal.
So what has been the reaction so far?
Every month, we're doing better. And I think that is key. You know, anytime you open up a business, when it's a food business, the regulars tell you everything, and the regulars mean everything. And that's what we're growing. We're teaching non-Koreans how eating Korean food can be not just healthy, but convenient. Now, I wrote a cookbook a long time ago.
My Korea.
Yes. And I thought, having run restaurants, that was the next step. You know, to have non-Koreans eat Korean food at home. But yeah, I didn't realize that most people don't cook out of cookbooks these days. In that regards, I failed with my book. But now I feel like I have a much more impact because we're teaching them to have Korean food in their fridge anytime and all the time.
And are people taking to that concept?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
In New York, New Yorkers?
Yes. Anybody who's busy really appreciates when dinner can be made quickly. And delicious dinner and healthy dinner, especially with especially young parents or even just people with a really tough schedule. And one of the biggest compliments we get is people who eat our meal at dinner time, they actually feel better the next day. And one, it's because it's fresh food, there's no preservatives, so people digest everything. And when they digest everything before they go to sleep, they sleep better. So it's just science, based on science, that they're going to have a better night's sleep, they're going to feel better the next day. And teaching people that, yes, what you have for dinner really directly impacts how you're going to feel the next day. And that's, once again, the power of Korean food.
And just, you know, the variety of different types of foods, the colors, the tastes, I think, it's always interesting.
We have over 80 different kinds of banchan every single day. And, you know, for foodies, it really is sometimes maybe too many choices, but there's no such thing. So
you're a Michelin chef, Michelin-starred chef, who's really done a lot of fine dining so far. And this is very much home cooking for Korean, banchan. Do you think your fine dining cooking technique actually applies to these banchan?
For me, there's only one way to cook. I learned that way through fine dining, meaning technique is everything, ingredients are everything, and the more work you do, the more complex something is, you can tell by the flavor that results in. I don't make banchan differently. I don't make, my son's snacks any differently. There's always a right way and a wrong way. There's a long way, there's a short way. There's the honest way, and there's the masking way.
Shortcut way.
From my just education and research, I think most Korean moms, when they cook for their family, they take the long way. They take the honest way. They worry about nutrition. They worry about ingredients. And the little technique that they may know, they do try to apply it. And that's why the food comes out better at home than at restaurants. In Korean cuisine. There's that 정성, there's that extra care because that food is for your family's health. And, in a restaurant case, that may not apply most of the time, but when I am cooking Korean food, it's instinctual. So that 정성, that care, that worry about, because Korean food, as good as it tastes, there is something more. Because Korean food is based on our health. That's the priority. And you can't, and I can't, I don't let myself forget that when I am cooking, whether it be a fine dining restaurant like my new restaurant or a very casual banchan.
Every Korean mom and cook has a signature banchan. I have one.
Okay.
Mine is the radish musengchae, radish, pickled radish. What is yours?
Okay, you got me there. I wouldn't say banchan, but I would say there's one dish that I have made more often at home than anything else. There's one dish that I think if I were to ever have an opportunity to have a last meal before I pass on, I would be thinking of that dish is a kimchi.
Oh.
Having a 묵은지, a really nice aged kimchi.
Aged kimchi.
Because that you can't really cheat.
Yeah.
Time does so many things to kimchi, fermentation in general, that these flavors you can't fake. And have that kimchi just power the braisage, the pork, and even then it's so powerful, so you need a fried egg to go with your rice. That, for me, it's Korean history, it's Korean culture, it's the power of Korean food and the power of Korean fermentation that it just shows visually, by flavor, the ability for that dish to warm my soul and anybody who's eating with me. It's a powerful dish.
I totally agree. When people come, when kids come back from studying in the States, they, as a mom, they will, so what do you want to eat? And many of the times they will say kimchi-jjim. It's not just the kimchi.
No,
it's
yeah,
the kimchi-jjim.
yeah.
It's that bringing out something in the kimchi that reminds them of, okay, I'm home. So tell us a little bit about you, Hooni Kim. How did you become a chef?
How did I become a chef?
Because it is not a common path for a Korean American male of your generation to cook.
You're right. When I was growing up, especially Korean American, it was just understood that if you were smart enough and if you did well in school, that being a doctor, being a lawyer, and finance was just beginning. Finance wasn't even accepted when I was growing up. I was always good at science. I enjoyed science and mathematics, and I thought I always wanted to do something that eventually helped people. That's how I sort of gained a little bit of self-worth. So I decided to listen to my mom and go into medicine. But I soon realized in medical school that this was not it for me. And I realized that if I continued this path, I would become a doctor, but I wouldn't be a happy doctor, and I wouldn't be a very good doctor, as good as I could be doing something that I really loved. So I didn't know how to cook. I loved eating. Food was such a big part of my life growing up in New York.
Yeah.
And I went to college in Berkeley, California, where the restaurant, the California food scene is incredible still because of the freshness of the produce. And that's one of the reasons why I picked Berkeley, because of the restaurant scene.
So you were a foodie.
Yes,
in
I was a
some way,
foodie. And having struggled so much in medical school, I became sick almost physically because I hated what I was doing.
Yeah.
I took a year off, a year sabbatical, and to rest, to recover, thinking that I was going to go back. But I had some time, so I signed up for a cooking class sort of.
It doesn't sound like you had an enthusiastic plunge into the cooking field.
No, because that was not an option for me. It was not a career decision. It was just, I need to do what I want to be doing for a little bit so I can go back and maybe feel refreshed.
Yeah, recover.
Yes, yeah. And at that cooking class, they suggested that we go into internships at any of the local New York City restaurants. And I started my internship at a couple of restaurants, and my last internship of the class was at Danielle, which was, at that time, I would say the best restaurant in New York City. This is before Per Se and all the other restaurants. And they offered me a job before my internship was finished. And that's when I actually had to decide, do I go back to medical school and be a not so happy, not so great doctor? Or do I pursue something where it gives me happiness and there's a chance that I could be a great chef? And I chose the latter.
But at that time, though, you were not setting out to be a cook of Korean food.
No.
So when did that Korean food become your mission?
Yeah, it took just one comment from one of my chefs that I respected, that I was working for, my boss. And my boss at that time said, look, when you open your own restaurant, you have to cook who you are. Okay, who am I? You know, Korean American, da-da-da-da-da. Confusing. I thought I was gonna cook maybe sort of a Japanese, French, Korean. But I looked at myself in the mirror one day, and I was a Korean ajashi. I just saw Korean. So I was inspired by my love for Korean culture, me wanting to be more Korean. And I couldn't do that in any other way except cooking, because that's the only skill set I had. Like if I was a good singer, maybe I can learn Korean songs, but the only way I can become more Korean was through food. And I wanted that challenge. I wanted to become more Korean because, like I said before, I romanticized Korean. And by then it was when Korean dramas and Korean music was growing, maybe not in the American scene, but definitely in the Kyopo, the Korean American scene. And I became a Korean chef because I wanted to become more Korean. I knew what I missed out growing up, not growing up in Korea. And I wanted to reclaim part of the Koreanness that I missed.
Can we now come back to today?
Okay.
And one of the reasons that you are in Korea right now, because you don't have a restaurant in Korea, you have a 요리 천사? Explain to us what 요리 천사 is.
요리 천사 is a group of chefs in Korea, restaurant owners as well. We have decided that what we can give to society, most of us aren't really wealthy or rich, but what we do know is we have this talent for cooking and this ability to teach how to cook. So I was looking for organizations to help Korean orphans, and there weren't any that I could do time-wise, cooking-wise, or skill-wise. And by then, I had a bunch of Korean chefs who were looking for Korean or any cooks, because cooks are always hard to come by. So they were like, hey, why don't we start training these children and then make them cooks? And we started this organization.
It's like a vocational training kind of thing, yeah.
But we realized when we started, nobody was interested. None of the kids were interested. Kids didn't want to become chefs. And we're like, why? It's such a cool, get to be on TV sometimes. We didn't realize they didn't understand the power of food because they didn't grow up eating delicious food. Like for most middle-class, well-to-do families, we equate delicious food with happiness. The kids who grew up who don't enjoy food never realize that. So why do you want to become a chef? So what we decided was, all right, most important thing, these kids have to eat.
Yeah.
So we took turns every week, a chef took their entire restaurant staff and made them food. So they were eating French food, they were eating foie gras, they were eating delicious homemade pasta, me, Korean food, Chinese food, Japanese food, Indian food, everything. And still, that is our goal, to make sure that these kids understand the joy that food can bring. And that has to drive them to want to be us. And it's been 7 years now.
Yeah. And 요리 천사 is cooking angels.
Yeah.
So that's what you are.
We were thinking of actually the children being angels.
Oh. Okay. So you're cooking for
the
angels.
Yes.
Oh, that's okay. That's even a better.
It works both ways.
It works both
Yeah.
ways. And so it's been 7 years, and the rewards are?
The chefs, every time they thank me when they are able to cook for the kids, when it's their turn to cook for the kids, every single time. We have not lost a single chef.
No one has backed out.
No. We've just gained. The chefs now have the opportunity to impact children or people in general who they couldn't before through education, just through even feeding them, giving them the opportunity to have a delicious, let's say, a fancy pasta, where now these kids can go out into society and not feel bad that they never had the chance to eat foods like we're serving them, to give them a little bit of confidence. I've experienced this because food is such a big part of our society now. To give that confidence, to give them an option of, you don't need to have a lot of money to go to culinary school to become a chef for these kids, because we will guide them along.
Yeah, we're there.
Yeah.
We're here.
So we have not, unfortunately, had a chef come out yet. We have a couple of cooks, but it's not an easy field. But we're trying, and we're learning, and I no doubt will get there.
Yeah.
More than one.
I'm sure the potentials are vast. We talked about it a little bit before, but Korean food. We're talking about how international it's become, the relationship to Korean culture. What do you see as the future of Korean food?
I think right now is the golden time of Korean culture, in that every big aspect of a culture that you can share to other nations, other cultures, like music, movie, food, fashion, art, beauty, all of that, I think right now Korea is just booming. And it's very rare, all of these facets booming at the same time. One love for one leads to another. Like, people who love Korean food are open to listening to Korean music. People who love Korean movies want to hear Korean music and eat Korean food. All of that is happening now, and I think that's why it's different than before. There was a golden time for Korean food in the early 1980s, I think, when New York Times first reviewed it. And from then on, it was like, Korean food's going to be the next big cuisine. And it never happened. Never happened. And even now, we're still not there.
We're still not at the pinnacle, you think?
No, because in the big cities, you're right, LA, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, Korean food is a thing. But I would say middle America, it's still not. And you can tell by watching just network TV in the US, there's scenes with people delivering Chinese food, even Indian food, Thai food. But nobody really orders Korean food for delivery or go to Korean restaurants. It's still an ethnic cuisine. Whereas I think Thai food, Japanese food, Chinese food is almost Americanized now. So Korean food has come so long in such a short time. And with the help of fine dining, help of casual, help of the Koreatown really traditional foods, and now banchan gages and specialty stores, those Korean supermarkets, it's just a matter of time, I believe. Yeah.
But it still has yet to seep into that middle America.
Yeah, things take time.
Yeah.
Things take time, especially when you're not just trying to attract people who are in the big cities where they have Korean friends. Because in New York, it's difficult not to go to school with a Korean friend. In the colleges, it's difficult not to go to school. But a lot of the red state countries, the small cities, Koreans don't live there. So for them, it takes a BTS to know where Korea is, to know what Korea is. It takes,
More than one
movie,
BTS.
yeah, a movie to sort of be interested in our culture.
Yeah.
Food's not there yet.
Yeah.
Restaurants
But
aren't there yet.
banchan is a good way to get in. So for that normal American.
We're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
And that's it for me. I will be back next week with another globalist who's putting Korea on the map. Sonji out.